alaikum and Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this week's second episode of BookBytes, the Ramadan edition. It's been such a beautiful week. I hope that Ramadan has provided the solace and the peace and the renewal that we've all been so thirsty for. I'm thinking back to Ramadan 2020 and inspired by my recent read because it was a time, I think, of, yes, uncertainty, a time of isolation, but also the perfect opportunity, and I'm talking of Ramadan in particular, for a kind of long-term itikaf. We were forced into this isolation. But how much of value did we actually take from that time? One of the things in the literary world is that we saw a great resurgence of reflective writing, of memoir writing. My book this week that I've been really enjoying and reflecting on is called Dear Waheed, which is a collection by debut author Farhana Yunnus, who wrote during that time, the 30 days of Ramadan, during the pandemic, as a way to connect both spiritually and to her son, who was in a different city at the time. A mother's legacy of love and wisdom in 30 unforgettable letters, a beautiful, beautiful compilation, a very courageous but intimate kind of collection of writing, which I really enjoyed. And it made me think that in many ways the personal is universal. So it's such a pleasure to welcome Farhana Yunnus on the show this afternoon and to hear from her. Assalamu alaikum, Farhana. It's lovely to have you on the show and Mubarak on this beautiful book.
Alaikum salam. Shukran so much for this beautiful platform to gently introduce dear Waheed, and I'm greatly appreciative.
Well, I mean, just to start off, it's so lovely to have an opportunity to celebrate someone who writes prose in such a poetic way. I really enjoyed reading this book. I took my time with it. I read it at those three side. It's the kind of book that you don't really have to read cover to cover. You could pick it up in the middle and just read a chapter. And I found it really beautiful. Let's go back to 2020, right? Let's go back to the emotions behind the writing. What was it like for you, and what sort of inspired you or motivated you to want to put these words into writing?
So, what I normally do, Shafinaaz, is for the month of Ramadan, I always try to begin something new. Um, and that year during the pandemic, um, writing was that thing. It was my way of connecting to my child, um, by writing letters to him. And the idea was to write 30 letters for the 30 days of Ramadan. So I wrote one letter every morning after my Fajr Salah, my recitations. I would just open a Word document and just start writing. And it all came from the heart. It was never something that I had planned. It was never something that was like a guide, okay, today I'm doing this, tomorrow it's that. It was just get up that morning, Bismillah, and I just start writing. And it was a bridge for me to anchor myself firstly, and also for my son. Us being in different cities during the pandemic, which was really quite a frightening time for everybody. There was so much of uncertainty going on, and me being in Cape Town and my son in Durban, this was my way of anchoring that faith to mother him um, this way, because I couldn't be there physically, I could be there spiritually. So, this in essence is what Dear Wahid is about.
It's also such a beautiful encapsulation of how writing is a journey of exploration because you explore your own sort of lessons, experiences, emotions while you're sharing these letters with your son, this communication with your son. Speak to us a bit about your journey of actually writing because I mean you spoke about writing in the morning and some artists have written about the morning papers. You encapsulated so many of these ideas. So speak to us about the process and the emotional experience, the catharsis, whatever you might have gained from it.
For me, why the mornings? It was fresh after Salah, fresh after reciting the Quran, and it felt very spiritual that time of the morning. Everybody's sleeping, everything is still, most especially during the pandemic. And it was just me talking to my Rabb. For me, that was huge. Um, that is why, at that time of the morning, I decided to write. I think it was just one letter that I wrote to Waheed towards the afternoon, but all my letters took place in the morning, writing to him. Um, at first, knowing that there was this connection between me and my Ram.
I'm so glad you mentioned the spirituality because obviously it comes through very strongly in each one of your chapters. You talk about faith and hope, your reliance on faith, the strong sense of hope, and the different verses of the Quran that you make reference to. Being granted ease, being promised ease through trial and through challenges. Let's talk about some of the lessons that come through, especially the ones that really offer hope through the verses in the Quran.
Um, for me, most especially, it was I speak a lot about resilience, about faith, about hope, about how parents can ground their child. And these are basically themes from the Quran. As you read, you pick up on a theme and it resonates, and then I feel I need to write about this. How do I understand this? How can I teach my child about this the best way that I can understand it? And most especially, it's also about you know as parents, we go through so much in our lives, so many emotions, so many hurdles we have to cross. And one matures from these experiences. And I wanted to write about that. If Wahid or anybody for that matter reading this book, and if they're at a certain crossroad in their time, open the book, and alhamdulillah, there's something there that they can take away from it, even if it's one line, one word. And for me, that's important.
I really saw this come through as I read through the chapter. So this in the introduction, what stood out to me is you're imparting these values and these lessons through your writing. You have this strong connection with your child that you're reestablishing through your writing. And then what is being personal in your writing can be taken as universal. In so many ways, what you're writing is what will allow so many to connect with. My first question here is when you started writing, did you think that these would be published someday, or was it a purely personal endeavor?
Absolutely not. Shafinaz, these letters were written not as an author, they were written as a mom. So it was a mother writing letters to her son on how to live a spiritual life, basically. Should he ever find the need one day for himself or his family, um, these lessons were in that letters. It was never intended for publication. It was more a way of um, preserving faith, preserving that connection. Um, for me, that was important. So, no, these were never intended for publication. It was very personal letters. I honestly did not think that this would be a book. It was never intended to be a book. And it was friends who's read the letters, and they saw something more universal in it, something that could reach a lot of other people as well, and basically help them. And that is how Dear Violet was born.
I must commend you because as I read, I also noticed that yes, this is an imparting of values and lessons and loving kind of reflections, but it's not preachy. It doesn't come across as preachy in any way. And I think this is what makes this writing so relatable. Your personal narrative, your reflections, your sharing, the authenticity of the sharing. And I really, really must commend you on how that comes across.
Shukran so much. Um,
Um,
it wasn't me preaching to Wahid. It was me. This is how we talk. So it was basically me writing to Wahid the way I would speak to him about something. It was very gently. Um, Dear Wahid's a very gentle book, and that was the essence of it. There was always this innate need to express myself in words, and to do it in a very gentle voice. So I hope it's read in that light.
I certainly think it comes across that way, that shared relevance between mother and son. Can you share with us what is his age at the time of writing, if you'd like to?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Oh, how old was he at the age during the pandemic?
It doesn't matter how old your child is, your child will always be your child. So during the pandemic, Wahid was 20, 21, 22.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful because it also shows the amazing way in which you've connected and obviously how receptive your son will be to this kind of teachings and learning. I know that we have to go for an ad break. So let's go to that and hopefully we can hear a piece out of the book from you when we get back. And we'll talk more about the themes in the book. Let's go to that ad break, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, and we're back. This afternoon, we're speaking to Farhana Yunnus about her book, Dear Waheed. I've really enjoyed reading this beautiful collection of very intimate writings written during the pandemic lockdown in Ramadan. And we're back with Farhana. Farhana, before the break, we chatted through some of the sort of reflections that you had while writing. But one of the strong themes, obviously, is as a parent, your concept of motherhood and transfer of knowledge and spirituality and just sharing vulnerably with your child. Um, let's talk about some of the themes that come through. The themes of resilience, faith, peace, lovingness, kindness, and also what really stood out to me is the sense of forgiveness, the sense of being able to step back and not have to get it right all the time. It really came through as well. This kindness and this empathy for yourself and others. Let's talk about some of that.
Um, yes, so I do write about themes like that, and the writing was never about being right as a parent. We as parents we also falter, we make mistakes, and I wanted to show my child by writing these letters that as a parent I was also human. I did make mistakes, and I learned how to correct them, and I hope he sees that in me, a mom who every time she fell knew how to get up and be present. So I speak on these themes of relationships, on kindness, on peace, especially on forgiveness. And I actually want these themes to resonate with people more as a way of life, and for them to learn that um, bringing up children in a world is not like, you don't have to have the perfect child. There is no perfect child. You need to have grounded children, and it is my hope that this book will resonate with parents on how to ground their children in faith. um, so yeah, that's basically what it is about.
I appreciate the honesty. I mean, I think parenting has altered over the generations and we feel the gaps and we want to be able to bridge those gaps with empathy just by showing ourselves as human to begin with. You know, that you're not always going to be the authority on everything in life, and that comes through in the story. In this writing. Please share a piece, read a piece for us, and let's get a taste of the essence of your writing.
All right. Well, let me just open a page and just read from there. Um, ah, a mother's prayer. I think this is important. As parents, we all make special du'as for their child. And this is letter 17. It's called A Mother's Prayer. Dear Waheed, my child, if I had the power to grant you blessings with a simple wish, I would do so with all the love a heart can hold. I would wish for you a life filled with peace, a heart open to joy, and strength to face every challenge with grace. These blessings, beyond anything magical, are the gifts I pray for you each day. So in this, I actually wish for him, various themes like love, joy, peace, strength, adventure. And I think I want to read a little bit about peace. So, may peace settle softly in your soul, like a gentle breeze on a quiet morning. I wish for you the kind of peace that comes from within, allowing you to navigate life's challenges with grace and serenity. May you find stillness amid chaos, a sanctuary of calm where you can retreat and recharge. In this solitude, I hope you discover the beauty of silence, allowing your mind to become quiet and your heart to open. It is in these sacred spaces that you are able to hear your own thoughts, reflect on your journey, and connect with the essence of who you truly are. So that's just a little bit from that theme.
I noticed also the way that things flow into each other. There's this idea in the beginning, and I really, I think that's really why incredible as well. This idea of finding something within or appreciating within what's within, the radiance within, I think that's what we call it. And then moving on to lessons of life, speaking about your own becoming, the woman I became, I think. And then we talk eventually about these kind of relationship advice that you're giving. The personal is made sort of is extended when you create those relationships with empathy. And so I enjoyed really that you're enhancing your child's consciousness through seeing themselves and seeing the rest of the world that they interact with and those in intimate spaces and relationships. Um, letting the parenting win as far as I'm concerned. Because as much as the vulnerability will say, I'm not going to be the best, and you're always sort of guarding yourself, judging yourself, as parents, I think that happens. There's also this kind of, but I want to get it right in this way. And I think in the book, you get it right. Whichever way you judge yourself beyond it, you got it right here. So talk to us also about the relationship with, I'm sure, this beautiful man that you, you brought up, a grown man now, and that's something to be celebrated. Talk to us about this consciousness. So we talk about toxic masculinity, and you've broken these barriers through your writing and obviously through your conscious parenting. Let's talk a bit about that.
Well, Waheed was brought up um, from a very little boy to be very assertive, to be able to speak his mind. Waheed was always thought um, that in life there's just no black and white. There's various shades of gray, and I always encouraged him to speak. If I said something and he felt that what I said was wrong. There was always this given respect, even if Wahid had to correct me, he would do it in the most respectful manner, and I, as a parent, would realize that I have erred. So there was always this type of parenting that I afforded Wahid. And Alhamdulillah, he's grown into a young man. At the time of writing the book, Wahid was not married. And I wanted to, in this book, encourage him that how to live that life. I speak about love and I speak about relationships in that book, and these are topics that's very taboo sometimes amongst parents. I grew up where my parents didn't speak about that to me. What to do when you're in a relationship. When you find the right partner, how should you live that life? And yes, in essence, this book is written for Wahid, but it speaks to children, to boys and to girls alike, and it teaches them what they should expect from life, from a marriage, from a partner. And that is important, because no one speaks to our children about things like this. And with social media being so in your face, and I feel that, children are constantly reaching to social media when they need answers. So why not open a book and seek that knowledge from there? Um, Something that's actually written in faith, written from a mother to a child, not just to Wahid, to any child. And I hope that this book, and I would love to encourage parents, both moms and dads, to sit together with their children and maybe read a letter a day, and I hope that this book encourages a platform for discussion about certain topics like this. I would love for children nowadays to be in a position where they can, go to their parents and speak to them about something like a relationship, or something about love, something that back in the day was very taboo. You couldn't go to your mom and ask her, what is this love about? So I'm hoping that this book actually opens that type of platform where it encourages positive relationship, and it teaches parents that they can talk about this, and how, so for me that is a gentle way in which I'm hoping that it can help parents with parenting their children.
I'm going to join you in that call to say that this beautiful, in a way, parenting or relationship manual needs to be read together by parents, by children, by young and old, by children who are reparenting themselves in some ways, by those who don't have parents or who have not had parents in their space for whatever reason. I think that this book is a manual of empathy, and you've done it so authentically, so beautifully. So thank you so much for giving us the time to listen to your thoughts on how this book came about. And inshallah, we wish you everything of the best as the book gets sort of read, as it's disseminated in the public. This would make such a great seed gift, I think, because of the kind of relationship dynamic that it celebrates and it encourages. And it's also something that will stay on shelves for a long time. Something that I hope will be deemed a classic in some way, inshallah.
Inshallah, I mean, shukran so much for this platform, for letting me introduce Waheed, dear Waheed, very gently to your audience. And it is my hope that, um, it would help a lot of families, it would help children who are finding themselves at crossroads, and pick up the book. And yes, it would make a wonderful gift. And inshallah, I hope it reaches lots and lots of people, and basically that was, when I decided that, okay, maybe I should publish. It was my hope um, that this book heals and helps not just our Muslim community, but broader as well, because it's very the teachings are very holistic and open, not just confined to a particular. Yes, it's based in faith, but it's something that can help a lot of other people as well. So shukran so much for this platform, and Allahumma barik.
And so there you have it. We spoke to Farhana, about her latest and new book, Dear Wahid. And I think sometimes as parents, you don't always find the right words to bridge those gaps in generations. And this book gets it right. So get yourself a copy, read it together, pass it around, share it as a gift. And with that, that's it from us this weekend on Book Bites. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.